So, good afternoon and welcome to the fourth module for the CCI Clearance Preparedness Program. The next module will be on April 8th from noon to 1 p.m. Cybersecurity Authorities, Laws, and Regulations. You all have received the calendar invite and you'll receive 3 reminders prior to the module. As a reminder, if you are using any AI tools, we will remove them immediately. We thank you for your understanding. As always, please email me with any questions about attendance and module logistics. I will turn this over to Dr. Eric Berger to get started on today's module outside.
Thank you so much. And I just figured it was appropriate given the topic. You're supposed to smoke outside, not indoors. And so I'm outside today. So again, we've talked about where you can work, talked about the clearance process, talked about the SF-86, and last time we talked about some of the regulations. There's like a regulation that we're going to be talking about today, but it governs so much. Again, the general disclaimer, and this one is like the big one of I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not giving advice. If you need legal advice, see a real lawyer because we are going to be touching upon a number of legal issues. So the law is explicit. If you're using drugs, you lose. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have used illegal drugs in the past, that you cannot get a clearance. If you have used in the past, the facts and circumstances, you keep hearing me say that phrase, the facts and circumstances of your case, and also the position that you're applying for and the agency itself determine your eligibility. And I will, towards the end, go through a couple of agencies and what their policies are. A thing you will see over and over again. We've said it so many times before, but this is a place where people just sometimes tend to trip up, and that is do not lie on your SF-86. Do not lie at the interview. That is worse than bringing the illegal drugs with you to your interview. And a big thing that also trips people up is that federal law, in fact, for most states, is different than state law. And remember, we're applying for federal positions here. Uh, when I keep saying really be truthful, this is a cut and paste from the SF-86. And you'll notice that it's got this disclaimer on it. It says basically, if you're truthful here, they're not going to use what you disclose on your SF-86 to prosecute you. It won't be used as evidence against you. So if you uh, uh, possessed a Schedule One narcotic 8 years ago. Possession of a lot of these substances is enough to be illegal. But if you put it down here, you're not going to get a call later from the FBI saying, "Oh, hey, you admitted to possessing an illegal drug." So again, the government really wants you to be uh, open, honest, and truthful. If you are in a situation where you may need to declare something, you definitely want to declare it. I would also offer that at the end of each section, there's a comments section. So, for example, if it was 8 years ago and you haven't touched the stuff since, check off yes. The boxes are binary. Have you or did you not? So you check off yes, but it'll save you a lot of time if in the comments section you say, yeah, it was 8 years ago. I grown up, I got counseling, whatever. Um, so they really, really want to make it easy for you to tell the truth. So let's look at the laws on cannabis, marijuana. This is the thing that tends to mess people up. As you can see, various states allow for the consumption and manufacture of cannabis products. And yes, growing a plant is manufacturing a drug. in various states, you notice those dots, it's decriminalized. What that means can be anything from a small amount might be legal, or a small amount, it's just agreed that you won't be prosecuted, or maybe there's a small fine or some other reduced enforcement or penalties. And sorry about the truck backing up out here. Um, so you see those green states legal for medical use. If you look at Virginia, it's even legal for recreational use. And I've kind of listed out from the last time I looked. Again, don't say, well, Dr. Berger said it was okay to share half an ounce of marijuana. Go see a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice here. What I'm showing is that in many states, cannabis, marijuana, CBD is legal. Uh, so let's like literally look at the front pages. Last time we did this program, it was during the Biden administration. They had just started the process to reclassify marijuana. Marijuana is statutorily a Schedule One drug. That means it's basically, as it says here on the Wall Street Journal headline, it's the same as heroin and acid. It's got no known useful use. It can't help people. You can only get hurt if you have it. It's in the public interest to like totally ban it. And so the Biden administration said, "Hey, that's not our lived experience." In December of this year, so just how shall we say, a semester ago, President Trump signed an executive order to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule One drug, a drug that has no possible use for anything good, to a Schedule Three drug, a drug that may have some dangers. But in fact, if you read the executive order, it says, given that there are like 40,000 medical prescribers and there's so much now documented with assistance with PTSD, with cancer treatment, with a whole host of medical uses for marijuana, he did sign an executive order that said, marijuana is not a Schedule One job, but it's a Schedule Three drug. However, it's still against the law. It's still, in fact, a Schedule One drug. The executive order said, "Hey, Attorney General, I'm directing you to do the work to reclassify it as a Schedule Three drug." So, thing number one to understand, don't, if you get arrested and say, well, didn't the president do an executive order saying it's not a Schedule One drug? The answer is going to be still a Schedule One drug. Uh, the second bit is there are a couple of laws that explicitly call out marijuana as disqualifying for a federal job. So there may be congressional actions that still need to happen before you can mix marijuana and any federal job, and certainly a clearance. Uh, and in fact, right now, it's still marijuana use is still, depending on how long ago, an automatic reject. So again, it's still a Schedule One drug. So if you manufacture it, distribute it, give it away, or just have it with the intent to manufacture, distribute, or dispense, it's illegal. You're committing a federal crime, which, as you can imagine, we went over public trust. We went over, are you trustworthy? If you're willing to break this law, what other laws are you willing to break? So, a couple of things in practice. If you have a clearance and you use any drug, any scheduled drug. So not just marijuana, but mushrooms, ecstasy, other drugs like that, you'll be in a heap of trouble. Now let's take another scenario. You're applying for a clearance and you're still using the drug. Now you've taken our advice, you declare it on the form, but you are currently violating federal law. You will not be cleared. And this is one of those things that, you all need to consider. If you're using marijuana now or have used it in the recent past, you might reconsider applying for a cleared job. I I should count how many times I say this. Maybe that could be a good quiz. How many times does Dr. Berger say, "Don't forget to declare"? One thing to be clear about is a number of the questions say, have you in the past 10 years sold marijuana? Have you ever taken heroin? Uh, it's really important to read the question. If you were a dealer in another life 15 years ago, and the question is, have you in the past 10 years? The answer is going to be no. Make sure you scope your answers to the question being asked. Uh, if you don't declare, you will not be cleared. Now, remember, I said that what you say on the SF 86, like question 23 about drug use, you won't be prosecuted for it. However, if you lie in that section, that is a felony, and there you may be prosecuted. Uh, so again, I'm not a lawyer. You might want to check with a lawyer before you fill out this section if you do have interesting past. I don't know of anyone who's been prosecuted that did declare. I do know of cases of people who have been prosecuted and have served jail time for lying on the SF 86. So don't lie. So one of the reasons we did the last section on the rules first is because this is all rules based. It is not that the director of national intelligence just doesn't like drugs and he doesn't like you. We have written guidelines. So the general guidelines. So this will apply to any agency. And for any agency, number one, you can't be using it today. Kind of makes sense. But if you have used it in the past, then the agencies are directed to consider, well, how much did you use it? Did you try it once 9.5 years ago, or are you doing it every day up to now? Uh, Clearly, up to now, going to be a problem. But a lot of agencies say not in the past year. Well, again, if it's every day up until the past year, there's going to be that question of, are you going to relapse? How long ago clearly is going to be an issue. If you've been clear for a couple of months is going to be taken differently than clear for decades. And so really what they're looking for, what the question they're trying to answer is your future use unlikely to recur? Are you going to be able to stay clean? I do want to revisit manufacturing and distribution. I'll talk about that another slide, and I'll also have the reminder about CBD. But again, that comes from the DNI. This is not Dr. Berger making stuff up. So let's talk about CBD. So you might say, well, wait a minute. CBD, cannabis is a hemp product. That's not marijuana. And kind of the answer is yes, you're right, but no, you're not. So there's a legal definition from 2018, the Agricultural Improvement Act, because we actually wanted to do two things. One is hemp is a very important component of rope, and hemp is used for CBD. So basically, it's technically not cannabis if it contains less than 0.3% of THC. One of the problems is if you're considering taking CBDs, gummies or things like that, they are notoriously mislabeled. They are notoriously have widely ranging THC content. And I remember seeing on the yellow line, there used to be ads down near Federal Triangle and Independence Avenue, where they had a little mouse. And underneath it, it basically pointed out this last bullet. Even if you're taking legal CBDs and it's under the federal limit for cannabis, if you have a positive test result, they basically say, too bad for you. You can try to explain it all you want, but the policy is the DNI's policy. So other agencies can't do anything different. If you fail a drug test, even if it's from a legal amount, you have no recourse. You are gone. So let's say you don't grow or smoke or sell marijuana, but there are a number of companies out there that manufacture or distribute marijuana. Now, again, this may change, but probably it's going to take a while to have it change. And that is that investment is illegal, even if it is a public company, even if you can buy it on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ, uh, you are contributing to uh, illegal controlled substances. Now, you might ask, well, what about if I invest in an index fund? Because it's likely that some of these companies are going to be in that index fund. That's okay, on the one hand. On the other hand, probably frowned upon to buy the cannabis ETF, the Cannabis Exchange Traded Fund. That would be seen as investing in manufacturing a controlled substance. So do be careful about that. If you are thinking about making those kinds of investments, seek real legal advice. Don't take my word on that. Again, it's not just marijuana. I focus on marijuana because that's the one that confuses people because it's legal in Virginia. We're in Virginia. Um, but yet it's still a Schedule One drug. But that doesn't mean you can use ecstasy. Ecstasy is also a Schedule One drug. LSD is a Schedule One drug. Heroin's a Schedule One drug. So, if it's on this list on the, how to say, level one, you got a problem. Level two, you probably, you have to talk it over with the facility security officer. The other ones, and this addresses a question that's come up, is, well, what if you have a prescription for the drugs? So the answer is abuse. If you have a prescription for one Xanax a day and you take one Xanax a day, you're fine. You're following the prescription. If you're taking 10 Xanax a day, you got a problem. If you're selling your Xanax, you got a problem. So again, it's looking at abusing it, illegal sales, and oh yeah, you had some oxycodone for surgery. They gave you a month's supply. Uh, you got better in a week, and you now have 20 pills left. You use those pills when you're not supposed to. That is abusing the drug if you don't have the prescription. Same goes for over-the-counter drugs. You may have noticed that a lot of antihistamines now, you have to go ask the pharmacist for them. If you abuse those drugs, use them for psychedelic purposes, that is considered a violation. Uh, and here's kind of the bottom line. If you are violating or violated federal law, you have violated federal law. And that seems obvious, but again, remember, marijuana is counter to federal law, even with the president's executive order. Until that gets implemented, you've got to be really careful. So Actually, yeah, let me before I get to what if you did the this is kind of back to the investing one, which is let's say you invest in a company that sells substances not as their primary uh 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 they're not the cannabis company. Uh what if they're selling uh other drugs? Let's say that Eli Lilly gets into marijuana sales or it gets into manufacturing a drug with THC or CBD that's not scheduled. And there are actually, there's at least one drug that's not scheduled. So that would be uh, a question for a lawyer, honestly. Uh, what about if they, uh, are selling recreational marijuana because they also sell tacos because you get the munchies and what a synergistic business that probably is going to be a problem. I The next part of the question is also a good question. What if it's a taco stand that's selling marijuana on the side and they don't tell their investors. They just say, hey, we've got really good sales going on. Um, Got to talk to a lawyer about that one. There is kind of a presumption that since you're benefiting from that, and let's face it, illegal activity, or maybe it is legal in a particular state and they're limiting it to a state, there's a presumption that as an investor, you should know what's going on with your investment. So definitely, I wish I had the answer, but I don't. That's a thing you'd have to ask a lawyer or an advisor about. So now the one that actually many people are kind of interested in. What if you did use, in particular, marijuana? Now, again, I said it before, I said it again. I'm going to say it again. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm also about to give you the public guidance from a number of different agencies. And I do that because it highlights that the different agencies have different policies for drug use. So again, definitely if you are in the situation where you have used, in a sense, if you don't meet kind of the minimums that I'm going to talk about, then that agency is probably not for you. But if you do meet the minimum, you still probably want to talk to the facility security officer or the recruiter and say, hey, I want to, check, make sure it's really worth our while. You don't want to waste a lot of time filling out the long SF-86 only for them to say no. And likewise, they don't want to open an investigation where they go, oh crap, there's no way we can hire you. Or the best scenario, they say, thanks for letting us know. They might ask you some questions about your use in the past, and they'll probably say, well, you have to check the yes box, but put this into the comments section and it'll make your clearance process go a lot smoother. So let's look at the Secret Service. Not a surprise given the DNI guidance, 1 year minimum since the last use, and in bold letters on their website too, even if it's legal in the jurisdiction, because a lot of people run into this. What if you grew a plant or two? Well, if you grew a plant or two more than a year ago, that's not an automatic reject. If you're got a plantation, that's not going to look good. If you did sell, it's not an automatic reject. It does have to be more than 10 years ago, though. So if you sold uh, a nickel bag 9.5 years ago, you're not going to be eligible for the Secret Service. And again, I'm not going to read the other consideration, but again, they're looking at your facts and circumstances. And part of those circumstances are what's a mitigating circumstance. If you're in a party state and you had a joint in college 6 years ago, will be looked differently than if you were in a state that had draconian drug laws and you still use drugs, right? Because again, they're looking for uh, whether or not you're likely to follow laws. Uh, and actually, this is a great question. We get it a lot. It, it was really pained me to have this question and give the answer because if you recall, in Virginia, only medical marijuana was legal. There was no recreational marijuana, and only veterans were eligible to get medical marijuana. And yet, if you have your medical marijuana with your prescription and you're getting it from the dispensary and getting it from the VA, well, I don't know if you'd get, yeah, you probably wouldn't get it from the VA, but you're following all the rules there. No go. It's a federal scheduled uh drug. And so if you don't meet like this 1 year minimum since last use is this example for the Secret Service, you will not get a clearance. And another quick one, what if you're down in Mexico or in the Netherlands? And I will have to say, I'm sorry, Kendall, can you dance and sing for a few minutes? I've got to unfortunately take a call here.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, everyone. But pretty much what I'm gathering here is don't do drugs. That's pretty much all I have to say in this quiet minute or two of silence. Just don't do it.
And I'm back. Apologies. As you might have figured out, I'm not sitting in my office today, and I have some things going on out here. So, the question of use outside of the U.S. in places where it's very legal and you're not violating any law, use of marijuana is explicitly illegal by federal law. And this is again why the executive order, one of the basically there are only two operational parts of the executive order. The first operational part is we're going to call it Schedule 3 once the Attorney General, does the regulation to reschedule it. The other is we're going to work with Congress to fix it. So again, they're going to be looking at, well, did you go to the Netherlands and while you were there, you went to a bar? Or did you go on the Let's Go party trip? Uh, again, they're looking at the facts and circumstances of your case. CIA, they're actually saying, if it's marijuana or CBD, it could be 3 months. Now, that doesn't mean 91 days you're automatically in. It'll be your facts and circumstances. But for the other drugs, remember I had that schedule out there on the earlier slide. For that, they're looking for at least 1 year minimum. And again, even if legal in the jurisdiction. Uh, so again, in this other considerations, they again highlight be truthful. They're looking for trustworthiness and honesty. Illegal drug use might bring your trustworthiness into question, but if you can demonstrate that it's behind you, that could be cool. What they're also looking for is honesty. Uh, and so, if you can be honest about it, you still have a chance for an agency like the CIA. FBI, again, so you notice how they're different than the CIA. If you used it in any form within 12 months, that's going to be a reject. But if you do have, and this gets back to that other question, if you do have a prescription for dronabinol, then it's not an automatic reject. But the FBI being the FBI, if you used anything else, within the past 10 years, it's a no-go. Don't bother applying. Same thing with the prescription drugs. If you've misused a prescription drug, so again, you can have prescription drugs. And again, declare because if you have prescription drugs like for ADHD and you show, and they'll probably ask your doctor, are you taking the drugs? They'll say, yeah, that's fine. If you're abusing those drugs, that's going to be a problem. Here's another one that sometimes gets people, and interesting, it's the FBI that points it out: anabolic steroids. So if you're getting pumped up because you want to be a field agent, uh, better be with a prescription. Otherwise, they're looking 10 years back. Now, clearly, given that the FBI is breaking up a lot of drug cartels, if you sold, distributed, manufactured, or transported drugs ever, that would be grounds for not being hired. Forget the clearance. DEA, again, not a surprise that they're more strict. Even for marijuana, 3 years. Here's another thing that actually was kind of always there, but they've made it explicit. They did this about 2 years ago. If you used drugs before your 18th birthday, it's not an automatic disqualification. They're looking at the whole person. For a lot of these questions, again, answer the question that's asked. Many of them are, have you in the past 10 years or since your 18th birthday? So if you're 22 years old, they are not asking, what did you do when you were 12? Most of the questions, but not all, read the question carefully, goes back to your 18th birthday. DEA, if you used anything else, remember the CIA was 1 year. Here it's 7 years. Why? Because it's the Drug Enforcement Agency. If you've had an arrest, so not a conviction, but just an arrest for possession, you're disqualified. If you've had an arrest for being under the influence of alcohol, uh, that's disqualification. And another one that's a disqualification is if you lie on your application. ATF. Here, pretty much everything's the same, but they also have another twist on here, which is if you have a position of public responsibility. And hold on for just a second. Again, I will be back in a moment. And again, thank you all for your understanding there. So ATF has an interesting twist, which is basically, if you abused the public trust when you had a position of public responsibility. So, and what do we mean by a position of public responsibility? So, like if it's a position that required a security clearance, which is one of the reasons I include this here in the class. But let's say you were a police officer. Police officers don't generally have security clearances, but if you were a police officer and you were involved with drug running, uh, that's going to be a problem. That's showing that you are not taking your public responsibility seriously. It even goes to elected or appointed positions, so like sheriff or something like that. Uh, and again, you'll notice at the bottom, if you lie, automatic grounds for rejection. Customs and Border Patrol, they actually do it kind of the other way. They really have just two rules, and pretty much anything else is fair game. And I'm not talking about just drug use. Pretty much, if you use any Schedule 1 through 5 drug, remember we were saying marijuana is getting rescheduled as a Schedule 3, but a Schedule 5 drug is like high potency Tylenol. If you've used that, again, illegally, if you got a prescription, that's okay, as long as you're not abusing the prescription. Then if you used any of them within 3 years, you're automatically rejected. And guess what the other automatic rejection is if you lied on your application, if you lied on your SF-86. So two big takeaways. Marijuana is not legal yet. It will be reclassified as a Schedule 3 drug, which then means if you've got the prescription, the person asked about what if I have a prescription? When it's rescheduled, then you can consider applying if you're still under that prescription. But if you're using it recreationally, that is probably still going to be a problem, and certainly will be a problem until the laws get changed. We have two more classes left. The next one talks about the cybersecurity authorities, laws, and regulations, as many of you will be heading into cybersecurity related cleared positions, hopefully. We're going to go over basically who do you call, or maybe if you're on the other side of that call, how do you answer? And then the last one will be on social media, uh, what to consider in the virtual world, how to protect yourself. So with that, I've got some questions here, and if you have any further questions, please put them into the Q&A box. One of the questions is, if you have ADHD medicines and you use them for concentration, uh, but then you also use them as an appetite suppressant, is that abuse? I'm not a lawyer. That's possibly a good question for your FSO. In a sense, if you're asking the question, you kind of know the answer. Uh, Now, side effects is probably not abuse. If you're taking the appropriate dose of the ADHD med, following the prescription, it's helping your concentration, and oh, by the way, you're losing weight, that's probably okay. If you're taking more than your prescription, or you don't really need the meds for concentration, that's where we get into that off prescription use, and that would be probably considered abuse. Um, do you have an old question that often comes up and it's worth reiterating? So this goes back to the whole process. And the question is, can you just go out and apply for a clearance? Or do you have to have the company apply for you? And it's even deeper. So it's no and not exactly. So the no is you cannot do it independently. It must be applied for through company or agency because only the federal government can do the clearance. And it's not just do the clearance as in like TSA does screening at the airports. It's the federal government pays the bill. So even if you are going the route of a government contractor, you're going to, or an FFRDC, you're going to MITRE, you're going to Microsoft, you're going to CACI, and uh, they're applying for a clearance for you. It's not that they pay the money to get it done. It's because there's a job that you need to fill for the federal government that requires a clearance, and it's the federal government, whatever agency that they're working on behalf of, that will process your clearance. So, uh, last chance for questions. As you can probably tell, I wouldn't mind if we ended early, but this is your time. So if anyone has any questions on drug use in general, marijuana use, or any other questions, now is your chance. Seeing none, let's just move this around. Thank you all very much. Oh, one a quick one. Resources for last time use. Yes. When you review, as always, we will post the recordings, and you will see that on the slides are the URIs for the different agencies' policies. How did I get that? Some of them I did happen to know, but Google your favorite agency drug use policy, and those pages will be some of the first hits. So no, that was a really good question there. I would hesitate to say, oh, just go ask Gemini or Copilot, because you want to, if you do that, check the links that they're referencing, make sure you get the real answer. Got another question that came in, and we'll keep it anonymous. You got a prescription for inflammatory bowel syndrome. Is that good as long as they're prescribed? And that's kind of the key. They're looking for drug abuse. Remember D CBP, Schedule 1 to 5 drugs, anything that you need a prescription for, they're looking at. They're not looking, are you taking a prescribed drug? They want to know, are you taking a prescription drug without a prescription or outside of the bounds of that prescription? So as long as they're prescribed and you're following the prescription, that should be fine. Here's a good one. How do they know you're telling the truth about drug use? I can tell you from personal experience, you will piss in a cup. That is guaranteed. You may have a blood test. That depends kind of on agency, but you're guaranteed to have a urine test. And those tests actually go back many, many months. So that's one way they can tell. The other thing that they will do is remember, especially if you're going for like a TS or TS with SCI, they're going to be interviewing your neighbors. And if your neighbors say, yeah, there's a sweet smell coming out of the apartment, they're going to scrutinize you carefully. The other is, and this is why I say be truthful and be fully truthful. Let's say that you used drugs 6 years ago. It's highly likely that you're going to be asked, who did you do those drugs with? Now remember, answering will not be used for prosecution. And one of the reasons why I emphasize that is because what's then going to happen is the investigators are going to talk to those people that you said you did drug use with, and they're going to go one level deeper and basically try to find the people who did drugs with you that you didn't disclose. So again, if you relatively recently were a party animal partying with hundreds of people, then yeah, you might want to consider, is a cleared position for you. But if it's been a long time, you've reformed and all that, I would still encourage you to talk to the facility security officer at the agency to see what your odds are for getting cleared. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none. Kendall, take it away.
That's it. Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it. I just want to share just from my own personal
Mhm.
experience is that this module series is actually helpful just for myself for obtaining a clearance. I have obviously been on these webinars and cohorts for the past now 3 years, but I know from probably a student perspective, you're like, oh, I'm just here, just listening, and maybe I'm listening, maybe I'm taking some of this stuff away, but you really should be listening to this because it genuinely will help you during the process and knowing the pros and cons of getting a clearance and knowing, the do's and don'ts. So just make sure you guys are paying attention and know that this actually is important information and it will help you in the future with obtaining a clearance. But that's all I have for today. And we will see you in April. Thank you all.
Actually, Kendall, we had one last
Oh, we
question that
do? Great.
came in.
Yeah.
That was a good one. And I forgot about it, and I got to remember to put it into the presentation part, which is, what if you got something laced with a drug unconsensually. And I do know this case of someone, basically their wife thought it would be nice to bake brownies. Now this person didn't have a clearance. This person, though, was a pilot, air transport pilot. And again, that's an instant suspension, probably revocation of your license. Uh, in fact, it'll kind of depend. This is where, the policy of the DNI is unfortunate. If you ate those brownies, you're hosed, because again, you fail the drug test. Uh, well, I wouldn't say you're hosed. Talk to your FSO, but it'll probably be an uphill slog. If it's other drugs, well, if it's happening all the time, oh, I didn't know that I was taking the ecstasy. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. If it was once, it's facts and circumstance. If you hang out with drug dealers and you happen to get something laced, not going to be looked favorably. If you got it at the church bake sale, probably you might let it pass, but definitely again declare, talk to the FSO, see how you should handle it. Now with that, we are done. Thank you all very much.